Thank you very much, Blair, for that kind introduction, and thank you very much to the Society for allowing me to talk about my work. So, today we'll talk about preparing students for the world of work, how we can increase their employability. A lot of my work is focused on putting things into the curriculum that aren't normally there, but enhance the student experience, the student sort of employability. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk specifically about employability modules. Talk about, I say, what I do, and also, or some of the interventions I've undertaken, but also try and put this into a bigger context, how they fit into other initiatives that are out there, and again, you know, it might be a thing for discussion towards the end. So, as Blair said, I started off as an in vivo physiologist, pharmacologist 30-odd years ago. I switched to slice work in the mid-90s when in vivo was going out of vogue, and when I moved back up to Leeds, I went back into in vivo. About 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to give my students the opportunity to learn in vivo techniques. And at that stage, Mike Collis, who's in the audience, and Maggie Leggett undertook a survey for the British Pharmacological Society and the Physiological Society, about in vivo education within the UK. And at that stage, there was 11 departments that gave their students the opportunity to undertake some in vivo education in their undergraduate studies. So about 150 students out of the 8,000 that graduate from UK universities in the biomedical sciences each year. So not that many, and again the numbers now have dropped. There's 7 in this country. It might drop even further over the next couple of years. So as I said, I wanted to develop a module that gave my students the opportunity to learn these techniques. But I didn't just want to give them hands-on practical experience. I wanted to give them an education that a modern-day in vivo scientist required. So in 2007, the APBI Bioscience Federation produced its report, In Vivo Sciences in the UK, Sustaining the Skill Supply into the 21st Century. And it came up with this long list here of additional skills that a student or a future in vivo scientist would require. From knowledge of the Animal Scientific Procedures Act, experimental and statistical design with respect to animal studies, knowledge of the alternatives, principles of 3 Rs, and really what society thought about animal experiments, the arguments for and against. And just after that, 2009, I undertook a survey, funding from the NC3Rs and Lab Animal Science Association, asking colleagues whether we should actually be incorporating these within our degree programs. And again, those who offered in vivo training, we thought that all should be involved, slightly less for those that are offered isolated tissue experiments. So going back to my module. So first of all, the learning outcomes from it. I wanted it to provide a broad education in vivo sciences. I wanted to give students the opportunity to make a career decision using that knowledge, whether they actually wanted to go down a scientific research path, whether they wanted to use in vivo techniques within that. So a broad understanding of in vivo sciences. Didn't want it to be a general interest module, so it's one module in the university where students actually have to enroll on and show me where they, why they actually want to do it. So it's designed specifically for those that want to go into careers in scientific research. Now, working on my own, I didn't want to give students the licenses that they weren't going to use. I couldn't supervise them all to anaesthetize animals. So this was the first of these modules where the students don't actually get home office licenses. They get their in vivo experience through delegated authority. The license holder is in the room and they perform tasks under his or her supervision. So they get an abridged version of the home office training modules. Very interested in ethics. I really wanted my students to understand the arguments for and against animal experimentation. So there's a debate in there where I put them into roles, the scientist, the animal welfare person, the anti-vivisectionist, etc. They have to argue their cause with opposing groups. They do get the animal handling course that somebody who's doing a licensed training would also get. Again, part of the objective of the module is a broader education in vivo sciences. So they get lectures from experts across the university, cancer biology, regenerative medicine, neuroscience, etc., talking about how they've used their in vivo techniques in their particular research program. So I want to give them experience of dissection, etc., but apply the 3 R's. So we use the animals post-animal handling course and the behavioural practical. Those are cold, and they're allowed, they then use those to learn surgery, injections, etc. There are hands-on practical experiences, so they do get to use anaesthetized preparations that I've set up. They do behavioural studies, they do metabolic studies. Key thing about this module is, again, we take them to industry, to our colleagues in Covance, and Covance help us, along with my colleagues and other people from industry, in designing this module. So in Covance, they see the whole process of safety pharmacology, from the acute dosing studies, to the chronic toxicity, to the reprotox, to the sort of post-study necropsy, the whole process of safety pharmacology in there. They also see the large animal species that we can't provide them with that opportunity. So the dogs, the pigs, the monkeys, etc. We're training future in vivo scientists. So all the assessments are designed to develop those key skills. So the communication skills, scientific abstract, report, and the essay. Purpose of this essay is to get them to see how in vivo scientists fit into the modern day research techniques. So they can choose whatever research area they want, and they just have to compare and contrast in vivo techniques versus in vitro in that particular area. Again, to see that it forms an essential component of modern biomedical research. So that's the module. It always receives exceptional feedback. And this is Rachel, if I can get it going.
Okay, Rachel, what's your reflections on 3126?
BMSc 3126 is probably the best module I've ever taken at Leeds in the 4 years that I've been here. For me, it was interesting, engaging, the standard of teaching was exceptional, and there was so much support and guidance throughout the module. One of the best things was that it incorporated the practical element with the lectures. So we were getting lectures that were interesting, and they were from researchers who, were doing in vivo experiments in their field currently. And that was being combined with us getting some hands-on experience, which for me, in no other module at the university have I ever had, a real chance to do that. The fact that we were able to debate the ethical issues that surround animal experimentation in scientific research was just fantastic. The fact that it was in a comfortable, safe and controlled environment just meant that you could ask the questions that normally you would feel that you're not able to ask. So for me, that was one of the highlights. In terms of future career prospects and where I'm going after university, I think this module is just going to give us that competitive edge that other graduates just won't have. And I think in the current climate, it's absolutely vital that we have these types of modules going, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone else.
Okay, lovely self-promo. I always get a laugh, exactly the same when I play it to students, when I tell them, advertise the module for next year. But anyway, key points from Rachel there, that she likes the education, she likes that balance between the hands-on practical and the others, the understanding, the ethical understanding in a sort of a safe environment, and again, recognising how this sort of sets her apart from her peers in the future. But that's really sort of just a short-term thing. Really what is more important is the long-term impact. So what I've done recently is contacted every student who's been on the module over the last 9 years. Managed to get in touch with about 80% of them. You see, 70% still think it's their favourite module, which is nice. But more importantly, how's it impacted on their future careers? One of, if not the best courses I took at undergraduate level. Experience contributed to me getting a PhD position. The knowledge has helped me during my studies. And if you look at it, over 50% say that it got them that first job, at least the interview, if not the job itself. Achieved its second aim, encouraging them to stay in research, in particular in vivo research. So 70% have stayed in scientific research. 60% is MH, PhDs or MReses, and then going on. Some of them went straight into research positions in pharma. So majority are going into science, but also the other key learning outcome was skills. So the education in vivo sciences, again, broad, very beneficial to them, not only if they stayed in research, but also in other positions in pharma, contract research, clinical trials, etc. Obviously, less important if they didn't stay in vivo, the practical skills, but transferable skills, the report writing, the debating, all those other employability skills, again, seriously advantageous to them in their future careers. So again, another quote, this lady went into clinical trials. Some of the skills I cannot transfer into my current job. Many skills I've learned that are able to use and which my employer values. My employers are very keen to know about the module, how they felt it was something that set me apart from other candidates, a well-respected module, even outside industry. Really, we're sort of a crossroads at the moment with regard to in vivo education in the UK. The demand is still there. This is Home Office statistics from 1995 to 2012. The number of animals we're using is going up, so we're on a 15-year high. That demand is being driven by universities. Commercial organisations is dropping off. And that is mirrored if we look at the number of project licenses held by individuals. Again, total number of project licenses is dropping off. University demand is staying constant. Pharma, again, is dropping off. And probably after the relocation of pharma last couple of years, those numbers are going to drop even further. So I quite accept that there is a glut of senior and advanced in vivo scientists at the moment, but there is a need to maintain our current training of undergraduates, etc., going forward. If we sort of fall back and stop training them, and then we're never sort of going to play catch up again. Concern at the moment, though, is a lot of the funding initiatives over the last 5 to 8 years are now coming to an end. The Integrated Pharmacology Fund, the MRC and BBSSC top-ups, the short courses that the Society and the British Pharmacological Society co-fund, again, will be coming to an end shortly. And really, this is where HEA needs to step up. There needs to be those institutions that, they are expensive to run, that agree to run them and to fund them. There are, as I said, there's 7 courses in the country at the moment. They're funded or supported by the British Pharmacological Society and industry. Again, without that funding, whether those courses would continue. So as I said, we need to sort of think about the future. We need to sort of work together, really, both in UK industry, academia, and the learning societies to maintain support for what I consider as this vital initiative. Because most of these graduates are going to go into academia itself. It's the phenotyping of transgenic animals, etc., where sort of the growth market is. Now, fully supportive of, I totally believe that in vivo scientists should be provided with hands-on experience. But we also should be, in developing these courses, delivering these courses, looking at online learning as well. So a few years ago, I released this booklet of training materials for animal welfare and ethics. I know, for example, in Bristol, Emma Robinson, who runs the in vivo course there, is putting some of her materials online. There's a lot of excellent resources out there for education and training in vivo scientists. The problem is they're locked behind closed doors, whether it be institutions, whether it be learning societies, whether it be bodies like WikiVet. And again, they're not allowing access to them. Those that are available, I've collated and put into this website, which is Education Training Resources in Vivo Scientists. And again, if you click through the resources, you get a description of individual resources, who they're used for, and a link to a particular resource. So in this case, humane endpoints. All these resources freely available on the web. So it's not only sort of use in education and training in vivo scientists, but also for practicing researchers. So it covers everything from animal welfare through to husbandry, ethics, anesthetics, you name it, the complete spectrum of resources that an in vivo scientist might require. And I think this move towards digital resources is the way that we're going to have to go with regard to education in the physiology and the other life sciences. So I've just written a review for the HEA comparing the benefits of virtual laboratory tools versus traditional lab practicals. Doing something like this really sort of open your eyes as to what actually is out there. And I can see these resources not replacing our traditional practicals, but complementing them. So, for example, you might learn the techniques in the laboratory beforehand and then go and use them in an interactive case study online. Or you might learn your mistakes online and then go and use those things in the lab afterwards. And some good examples out there at the moment. So, for example, up in Dundee, Life Sciences in Dundee, they've taken the iGEM concept where you are taking biobricks, synthetic biology, and building your molecule and then transfecting it into level 2 laboratories. So students have to go online, use molecular biology tools to select their biobricks, develop their construct, and then they go and order the plasmids from the technicians and then use those things in the laboratory in subsequent weeks. In Bristol, they've gone on to eBiolab, so lots of resources online, prepare the students for the class practical before they go into it. So really, we're moving away from our passive 3-hour practical to active learning that might take 12 hours, it might be run over a number of weeks. There's potential for collaborative learning, getting students to work in groups, to design experiments, etc., put them in practice. Again, there's potential to overcome some limitations of traditional lab practicals. So talking to a neuroscience colleague at Leeds, there's a neurome program there. It's computer simulation of a neuron. Students can add and delete ion channels. He then took it into the lab afterwards, and they did the same experiments on a crayfish, and so they can then immediately understand what the results they're seeing from the sort of simulations they've done beforehand. So really, I think it's a discussion we had in the Students' Partners workshop just previously. We shouldn't be using technology for technology's sake, but we should be using it from where they can enhance the student learning process. So it might be beforehand, it might be as a supplement, etc. But really, it's an idea that we should be sort of looking into. So that's enhancing student employability in the lab. But the majority of our students, or increasing numbers, are not staying in science. They're going to alternative careers. So what we should be doing is developing key transferable skills that they can use in those future careers. Not only the transferable skills, but also providing them with invaluable work experience. So this is a list of key skills that our Industry Advisory Board, which is a group of industrialists, suggested at Leeds that we should equip our students with. And no doubt you have a similar list from your own institutions. So it's knowledge, it's practical experience, it's working with numbers, the ability to communicate in various forms, different audiences, etc., to solve problems, team working, adaptable, all sorts of different skills. So not only should we be providing our graduates with these skills, but also we should be providing them with work experience. So this is the High Flyers report from this year, which is a report produced or a survey of graduate recruiters. Key findings in that survey were that a third of recruiters only employed somebody who had actually worked for their own organisation as an intern or short-term job beforehand. 50% of recruiters are unlikely to recruit somebody who has no previous work experience. As I said, will have little or no chance of receiving a job offer. So we should be, as I said, providing our students with work experience. One of the easiest ways of doing that is actually in using their final year project. So, 2009, Martin Luck in Nottingham produced this report for the HEA on final year projects, a compilation of different types of final year project that we could do in the life sciences. Post that report, I asked every second year student at Leeds, so that's 600 students across the faculty, what type of final year project they would like to do, going from individual lab all the way through to enterprise or survey projects. And as you can see, there was not one type of project that they didn't want to do. More tellingly was when I asked them specifically, what would be your first choice of project? 62% didn't want to do an individual lab project, which is what a lot of colleagues see as the gold standard for physiology or life science students. More importantly, 20% wanted to do something totally different, not a lab project, not a critical review of the literature. With time, that number has now gone up to 35%. So a third of our students want to do something totally different. So, as module manager for final year project module in biomedical sciences, we now offer 9 different types of projects. So we offer the more scientific ones, the individual lab projects, group lab projects, bioinformatics, computer simulations, etc. But we now offer 4 different types of alternative project, non-lab-based project. So the first one is therapeutic audits. These are where they search the literature for published clinical trials and then use the software on the Cochrane website to undertake a meta-analysis of those clinical trials. Using that software, they can generate these forest plots which show the efficacy of various treatments. So in this case, exenatide, a treatment for weight loss, and comparing it to placebo. Individual clinical trials are shown by the horizontal lines, mean data by the big bars. So again, just showing that this drug treatment is more efficacious than control. They can do whatever they want. So they could
compare drug treatments, or they could compare bariatric surgery versus drug treatments versus lifestyle interventions. Think about it from the skills point of view. They're learning to handle huge data sets. They're learning to analyze the literature, to interpret the literature. Again, it's direct, particular students who like these are students who want to go into medicine or clinical trials. I do it obviously on obesity and things like that, but you could really do it, we're in the days of big data sets. There's so many publicly available data sets out there that are rife for mining. There's a colleague in Hertfordshire who used the NIH database to look at safety pharmacology. You could do it virtually in whatever field you wanted. Second type, public health surveys. So this is where students create and then undertake a health survey of the general population. It's up to them, whoever they want to choose as their as a survey population. So, for example, we've had people looking at the lifestyles of taxi drivers. We've had people looking at food education in schools, how that impacts your nutritional influences or lifestyle in later life. This is my particular favourite. Kathy was looking at rugby league supporters, the effectiveness of a lifestyle intervention introduced by Hull Kingston Rovers Rugby League Club. So not only did she interview the people that were going or taking part in that intervention, but she went along on match days and weighed the supporters, took a height measurement there, gave them a questionnaire to fill out. Particularly like it because she managed to con season tickets out of 3 Super League clubs while she was in the bargain. But more importantly, they can get huge data sets. And Kathy got 500 respondents for that. So again, skills-wise, manipulation of that data, it's producing, generate or enabling her to use a significant amount of skills. Again, taken up by people that want to sort of go into surveys, want to do anything that's going to handle large data sets, accountancy, things like that. People who are interested in public health. Like a lot of institutions, we offer the opportunity for students to go into schools to deliver interactive teaching, enhancing teaching sessions. So we've got one carousel that goes around primary schools. We've got another carousel that goes around secondary schools. So this is Fee, who was actually, that's in my son's school, talking about respiratory physiology to primary school kids there. And they might deliver the same session up to 15 times to different year groups, different schools, etc. Again, students who want to go into teaching, who want to go into science communication, who want to go into various careers that require them to storyboard, to tell, to bring information down to a sort of accessible level. Again, ideal projects for those sort of students. Finally, curriculum development. This is where we get students design resources to enhance the curriculum. So it might be lecture support materials. It might be a new practical. In this case, digital learning objects on tissue engineering to support a level 2 module. Again, people want to go into education. People are interested in software, program development, educational resource development, etc. Again, key skills, valuable work experience for those particular students. So as I said, significant student demand, and it is going up for these type of projects. Faculty perspective, they're great. You're not spending your time or a large amount of your time in the lab supervising lab students, neither are your PhD students. They're cheap to run. Survey projects cost nothing. Science com ones, about 100 quid for transport. So your faculty directors of teaching love them. Key concern, though, colleagues, is academic equivalence. When I first suggested this to other project module managers across the faculty and showed them the sort of the student survey, this is what one of them came out with. Seriously doubt that an education development, science society, or enterprise project provide the same intellectual stresses and challenges as a lab-based project. Should treat these alternative projects with a great deal of caution, irrespective of whether students want this sort of thing. And again, we have similar responses from external examiners. We had a similar debate a couple of years ago in the Education Committee of the Society. Fair dues to him, Andrew has come round, and now his project module does offer these projects. Having seen the quality of some of the work that students produces, so for example, the University of Leeds candidate for the Physiological Society Undergraduate Prize was somebody who did a therapeutic audit project last year. Having seen these, and also student demand saying, they can do these projects on this project module, but not on mine, why not? Then obviously he's now come round and we are, his project module is offering these projects. Always point again to the QAA Biosciences benchmark statement that says, regard to projects, students should have a personal experience of the approach, practice, and evaluation of scientific research. Appropriate for students to do this work in areas that are not strictly related to research, so in education, public understanding of science, expected that it's a hypothesis-driven piece of work. So my argument always is that you can get your practical skills in other parts of your degree program. You can get your subject specificity in other parts of your degree program. This provides a different development of different skills at different learning outcomes. Colleagues are increasingly supportive of these type of projects, but aren't so comfortable with offering themselves or supervising themselves. It's outside of their comfort zone. My argument is these are far easier to supervise than any other type of project. Effectively, you let students get on with it and teach themselves the software, etc. For those of you interested in alternative projects, Mick Healy in Gloucester has just released this report, which is a National Teaching Fellowship project on arguing for alternative projects and different types of final year project. And linked to it is a database of case studies going across the sciences, humanities, etc., both from the UK and abroad. It's worth looking at if this area is interesting to you. But that's opportunities within the curriculum, whether it be in vivo sciences, whether it be alternative projects. The NUS and CBI report 2011 said, as educators, we should be offering students opportunities to gain work experience and employability skills outside of the taught curriculum. The idea of working with students as partners. Collaborative arrangement, equal partners. And we've just had a very good workshop on that about an hour ago. And I use students as partners across a range of my educational activities. I couldn't actually undertake all that I do without working with my students. So every grant I put in, I always have some educational research interns on that grant. And again, they can do a whole range of activities. So for example, I go into schools, I use audience response handsets. I've got data from 2,000 young people now, so I had one person evaluate that data for me. I've had students develop guidance for fellow students on how to create digital resources using Xerti software. Students who, my In Vivo Sciences website, they search the web for those resources. I've got one at the moment who's acting as an event management organizer for a large public engagement event I'm running in September. So, benefits to the students. They're developing, again, depending on the project, a huge range of employability skills. They're getting that valuable work experience. More importantly, they've got a defined product they can show their employers afterwards. So, resource guide, a website, etc. Every student who works for me, if there's a scientific publication or educational research publication that comes out of it, they get the names on it. Again, an additional thing to put on their CVs. And all these things, students are notoriously bad at identifying the skills they're gaining and articulating those to employers. So what I make my students do is reflect on their experiences. They start an internship, they reflect on why they want to do it. Throughout the internship, they reflect on the skills they're gaining, etc. They have to write a 2-page reflective case study at the end. And they pick out the key things that I've just mentioned. So, brilliant experience, taught me a variety of skills, set me apart from other students. Something extra and unique to add to the CV. Realising that they need, for their future employment, that big thing that makes them different. Again, necessary for undergraduates, great place to learn. However, employability skills are a completely different area of learning. Importance of employability skills should be stressed more to undergraduates. Don't know about yourselves, but what I'm finding is they get this message about level 2, halfway through level 3. What we really should be doing is ramming home the message that the day they walk in through the door at level 1, that's when we start boosting your CV. Some get it, as I said, majority don't at the moment. So this is my latest foray into extracurricular activities for developing employability skills. pop-up science. So I go into schools a lot to talk about science, other forums, and students know I do this, so they want to volunteer to come along with me. Took one student along once to the National Children's Museum in Halifax, and we came back on the train afterwards, and we developed this idea of pop-up science. What it is that it's totally student-led. They form teams, they go out and deliver science activities in all sorts of venues, but not schools. In their own time, so at weekends, after exams, etc. The idea is that they form a group of 4 or 5, depending on the event, that they elect a team leader, and usually out of the team of 4, 2 of them have done it before, and they mentor and help the other 2 to learn how to communicate to the public. So they've gone to all sorts of places. So National Children's Museum, again, age group between 3 and about 7. Community Gala in the socially deprived area of Leeds. And again, these were 2 society-funded vacation students teaching individuals or engaging individuals in how the brain works. Springtime Live, which was a family fun day at the Yorkshire Showground. And another community fair, again in a different area of Leeds, this time with a high population of migrants from Eastern Europe. So we're engaging with a much wider range of the community, but also it's developing key skills within those individuals. Because I don't go with them, they've got to think on their feet. And again, I make them reflect afterwards. So one exhausting, enjoyable day. Absolutely knackered. Challenge to keep them engaged and make it simple and interesting. Fulfilling to keep attention of a group of 13 to 14-year-olds, them coming away having learned something and saying what taught them interesting. They're having to adapt on their feet to realise that you have to communicate in different ways to different audiences. So stark contrast to Beeston Festival, which is young families, found it hard to adapt. Enjoyed adapting my method of communication to the more older, more knowledgeable kids at the Big Bang event. So they're learning from it themselves, but also they're inspiring other people. Young people who might not engage with science, adults who might not normally engage in science, particularly in the more socially deprived areas of Leeds. So the best experience was a homeschooled child who, after 20 minutes, filled with really interesting questions about the body, especially the brain. Finally left begging his mum to do lots more science tomorrow. So I think this is what we should, who is the best role model? Ourselves, old codgers like myself, or somebody who's much nearer their age, who they can sort of aspire to become in the future. And again, for my students, it's developing those key skills, the ability to storytell, to adapt to different situations, etc. Peer-assisted learning as well, or peer mentoring within it. That's outside the curriculum. We should also be putting more public engagement within the curriculum. So I've just undertaken a research project for the Society of Research in Higher Education, where we looked at public engagement activities within the curriculum, both within the UK and internationally. So within the UK, we went through every undergraduate module in STEM subjects, and out of the 2,700 STEM modules in the UK, there was only 104 public engagement modules. Thankfully, majority of those were in the sciences. If we look at the type of activity they were delivering, there was some science comm training, and the science ones bars are in the blue. Most of them were outreach, so this is delivering to predominantly to schools. There was some service learning. And service learning is where it's a method of teaching where it combines formal instruction, so educating our own students, and the students also deliver a related service to the community. Now, that was a picture within the UK. If you look at the picture internationally, and that's predominantly from the States, it was totally different. It's predominantly service learning. And some of the things they actually got up to were extremely inventive. But before we go on to that, why should we aspire our students to engage in service learning? If you look at what employers want, then the APBI Skills Report 2008 came up with 3 key findings. Concerns about the students' ability to apply mathematical knowledge, lack of practical skills, and lack of ability to apply scientific and mathematical knowledge. And this is a key point. Are we, knowledge is out there, it's readily available on the internet. Are we sort of cramming our courses with content, and should we be more switching to learning to find that knowledge and apply that knowledge? HEA Biosciences Rep Network, very active email network, and it goes up and down in phases. Somebody, usually Phil Langton from Bristol, will post something and the emails sort of go buzzing. And this is some of the things posted when Phil posted something about this application of knowledge. I know the author of this one's in the audience. How many of our graduates actually use any scientific knowledge we give them in their later careers? It's the process of education that is important in imparting the ability to learn anything rather than the specific content of what we actually currently teach them in order to pass our exams. Or Phil's comment, employers have been saying for years that students know lots but are generally poor at making use of that knowledge. To paraphrase their comments, graduates can't do anything with what they know. And really, this is where service learning comes in. And just to promote an example from the States of what could actually be achieved with this approach. I don't use it at Leeds, but I'm becoming a convert. So this is an undergraduate module, and the aim of the module is to assist help health-related outcomes in the developing world. So in the first year, they will define a problem and then contact the NGOs in developing countries and work with them to develop a solution. So in this case, it's developing a diagnostic lab in a backpack that can be taken around remote clinics, say in sub-Saharan Africa. So in the first year, they define the problem, identify the partners, they build a prototype, they take it into the field, so take it to Africa, evaluate it with a small group of users, collect the survey data. Unlike our projects, this goes on for 2 or 3 years. So the second year, a different group of students take that solution, the survey data, uses passions, etc., identify new partners, build 8 packs this year, improve the electronics, improve the components, bigger distribution, bigger survey, again identifying strengths and weaknesses. Year 3, then it goes on to maximizing design weaknesses, new users, business plans, etc., wider distribution, and so on. So just an example of what could actually be achieved. Benefits of this, obviously, or a lot of benefits, it's a real-world solution. It's a real-world problem, but it's working with different disciplines. So in this case, it's engineers working with biomedical sciences. Other things they've done, it's engineers working with creative designers or life scientists working with creative designers, depending on the problem. Something that you would do in a real world, working for a company, etc. And the employability of these graduates must be exceptional. And really, we don't move across disciplines, and really we should be thinking about this, being more adventurous in what we do, and also thinking about collaborating within institutions, across disciplines, etc. Sticking with the working with society or application of knowledge. Public understanding of science, 2/3, this is a survey that the public do or public attitudes to science, I should say, the government do every couple of years. So 2/3 of respondents last time it came around said they would like scientists to spend more time that they do, discussing the social and ethical implications of their research with them. We're becoming a more ethically aware society. Graduate employers now are expecting their graduates to have an ethical awareness, but also to be trained in ethical thinking so they can identify problems and work through solutions with them. Now, we changed our A-level curriculum to a more application-based, science and society-based, rather than just content delivery. So ethics is now in the undergraduate curriculum. Teachers find it very hard to deliver that content, and so it becomes a minimal part. And as I said, I go into schools a lot to deliver sort of ethics debates, discussions, usually on animal experimentation, sometimes on other things. And talk about animal experimentation, majority of them haven't really sort of thought about it. You ask them opinions at the beginning, 30% probably agree with it. Started to ask the same question to our undergraduate students in an animal ethics seminar. How many of you agree with use of animals and animal tissues in your education? There's probably about 10% there that don't, and really have to think about, should we be giving these students the opt-out to not participate in animal experimentation? We give them the same opt-out for human experimentation. But also, with our undergraduates, it's an ethical awareness per se. So I asked them, they've all done isolated tissue experiments. I asked them, have you ever thought about where that tissue came from? And I get all sorts of weird answers. Majority of them, it's another lab chemical. They haven't really thought about it, the ethical implications of using animals or animal tissues in research. I've had one biology student who thought it was roadkill. There was a company that went out there scraping dead rats off the road, put it in the fridge, and you rang him up and asked for your bit of gut or whatever. There were other students who were horrified that we actually had an animal house in the university. So there's a need to embed ethical training within our programs. If you look at the Biosciences Benchmark statement, it says exactly that students should be confronted by the moral and ethical questions to consider viewpoints other than their own and to engage in intellectual argument. They should be able to construct reasoned arguments to support their position on ethical and social impact of advances in the biosciences and appreciate the need for ethical standards and professional codes of conduct. So Leeds University has taken this on board, and we now have to, in all our programs, whether it be arts and humanities, whether it be the sciences, have to follow three sort of what they call broadening strands throughout it. So there has to be employability in there has to be global awareness, and there has to be ethics and social responsibility. We're moving towards a sort of a liberal arts type of degree program where students can spend 10% of their time following what they call discovery themes throughout their program. So sticking with the same theme from level 1, level 2, level 3. Ethics is one of those themes. So there's a big push within the university to get ethics within curriculum. And as Blair said, my current position is neuroscience and ethics, so I'm responsible for teaching ethics across all our faculty's degree programs. Now, we haven't got an ethics module, it's embedded within specific modules. I might have a small group, so in my animal sciences module, group of 15, we can actually debate the issues, and they really get into it, they really get involved. But for the majority of students, then we're in groups of 200 in a large lecture theatre. We've got to use interactive teaching methods to get them engaged. So do it via a number of ways. First of all, has to be highly topical. So anything in the news I use. So we've done bioweapons, chemical weapons, etc., three-person IVF. We do obviously animal experiments, we do the human experiments. We've got to get them engaged within that group. So there's different ways we can do that. We can split them up into groups, so top left might be patients, top right might be parents, etc. And then they think about it, discuss the issues within their small group, and then report to a bigger environment. Or we could get them to think about the harms and benefits from different perspectives. So in this case, gene doping from athletes, fellow athletes, etc. Again, just different ways of getting students engaged. Now, problem with this is trying to get impact from them. It's part of a larger module, so it doesn't come up in the module reviews. Do get open comment questions, and I really say that we could split it into the cohort into three. A third that love it, a third that tolerate it, and a third that can't stand it while you're here. And some of the comments. Most constructive seminar I've attended to date, gained a lot from it, surprised and impressed at the contributions of my fellow students and their willingness to discuss the issues. So if you do it in a non-confrontational environment, you do it in a way which can generate interaction, students will actually engage with the process. Easy to forget there are more than two sides to it. Learned a lot, and more importantly, the discussion points have stayed with me. So again, get them to think out their own little shell, get them to realise that there are many sides to the argument. There's nothing that is definitely right or definitely wrong. It's just got to weigh up the harms and the benefits from different perspectives. It's engaging them with the learning, to think about it as a purpose, the opportunity to put why back into the course. Animal sciences, I get them to blog their reflections pre and post. And again, it challenges them to think about their opinions. So this student had been in industry, done an in vivo placement, set on animal experimentation. The benefits outweigh the costs. Post-debate, change of opinion. Interesting, insightful, made you think about the arguments from different perspectives, realise that some anti-vivs have some valid points, hard question to argue whether you can justify the use of animals. I'm not trying to change their opinions. All I'm trying to do is to get them to think about it and consider it, and then make an informed judgment based on that consideration. Okay. So, in summary then, showing you why we should put employability skills into the curriculum. We should be thinking about opportunities both within and outside the taught curriculum, and there's benefits for all, for student education, for our own degree programmes, etc. Thank you very much.